Hey everybody, in today's video, giving you a rundown on a pretty cool milestone that I crossed this past week. That's right, over $100,000 in total net premium. So today we're going to give you a look as to where things began, things that I've learned in the past year, and the direction that I'm moving in when it comes to selling options. Let's go ahead and take it back to the very beginning. It was 2022, and my wife and I had just sold a vacation property that we owned out of state. As a family, we were not able to make it there as much as we wanted to. And like all great real estate stories, we made out like a bandit, and we had a pretty sizable chunk of change. Now, I had just begun my investing journey in 2021, so I certainly knew that I wanted to invest that chunk of change, but I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to invest it all in the stock market. And so I began exploring ideas on YouTube, of course, and I came across this guy right here. I always give him a shout out when it comes to my options journey. That's right, Mr. Brad Finn. His videos alone that I began following to a T back in 2022, I can say without exception, led to my success today. And so I always want to give Brad a shout out. I continue to love his content. He's doing great things, and he certainly inspired me. So let's go back to that first year, and I want to show you here in 2022, the first covered call that I ever sold was in March of 2022, and then subsequently I also began selling cash secured puts. My first year in 2022, I made $47,692. It's important to point out that that's net premium, and so I'm not just showing you guys the fluffed up gross numbers. I am showing you guys net profit. That includes the losses as well as the profitable contracts. Now, I got to tell you, coming out of 2022, I was super confident, maybe a little bit too confident, because I thought for sure I'd be able to make, easily 100,000. That didn't happen. And take a look here in 2023, if we combine the covered calls as well as cash secured puts, I made 32,000. Now that number has recently gone down from about 40,000 to now 32,000. So what gives, right? Why the significant decrease in net premium for those of you that followed my December update when it comes to selling options? We're going to talk about that as to why my strategy is going to be a little bit different. But let's go ahead and first take a look here at 2024. And one of the things that I'm doing is, again, whenever I look at the contracts that I sell or the profit that I make on contracts, I always zoom out and look at my profit on a monthly or yearly basis. I don't really want to just focus on, for example, February of 2024. You might look at that and say, holy smokes, Wayne, you made $12,414. Well, that's the reason why 2023's total combined total for covered calls has gone down. I had to roll a position out, and this kind of goes back to my strategy being different when I move forward. Let me expand on that, and I'm going to go out to my Robinhood brokerage, and you can see here that the total portfolio value is just over $406,000. Now, one thing that I want to point out is, in addition to selling covered calls and cash secured puts from my brokerage account with Robinhood, I'm also selling options in my Roth account. I'm also selling options from my wife's brokerage as well as her Roth as well. So I'm pretty well diversified when it comes to the different types of accounts that I'm actively selling covered calls as well as cash secured puts. But let's go ahead and show you what I think is going to be a difference in strategy with me going forward. Now, I want to go back to the spreadsheet, and you're going to notice here in 2023, I sold 543 cash secured puts. I sold way more covered calls in 2023. In fact, 624. But yet, if you look at the net premium that I earned for 2023, I made far less when it comes to selling covered calls, right? $8,400 compared to the $24,000 in cash secured puts. And this kind of goes back to the mindset where if you are going to sell covered calls, and let me go back to my brokerage here, and Apple's a perfect example. The thing that I've learned the most is the reason I've had to roll up and roll out my positions is because I have fear of being assigned. When you sell a covered call, you are entering a contract in which you are agreeing to sell 100 shares that you own. There's, of course, an agreed upon strike price. There's going to be premium that you immediately receive, but if that contract expires worthless, great. You keep the entire premium as well as your shares. However, if the share price goes above your strike, then of course you have the risk of those shares being assigned. And this is what I've really learned. Apple is a great example. I currently own 200 shares of Apple, and you can see my cost basis I think is pretty fantastic, just under $136. I really was able to buy at a very sort of ideal time. So just if we look at unrealized gains, I'm sitting on over 33% profit. Now the markets are still open, so you might see that number fluctuate, but essentially I'm just over $9,000 in unrealized total gains. But here's the problem. I have decided to sell covered calls against my 200 shares. Now, the good thing is, and of course you've heard Brad say it, I'm going to say it is so important to sell above your cost basis. That's the number one thing that I'll be doing this year, because I learned my lesson the hard way these past year and a half with selling covered calls against my 300 shares of Tesla below cost basis, and that's why you're seeing such a significant swing when it comes to premium earned on the covered call side. Perfect example here. Take a look here, right? You might look at this and say, holy smokes, Wayne, you were negative $32,000 in January of 2023. You were negative $11,000 in April of 2023. And a lot of that has to do with me having to roll up and roll out. Now, hopefully when you roll a position, you're doing so for net premium. But I can tell you right now, Tesla has been one of my biggest failures, and it comes down to one simple fact. I sold below my cost basis. That's not the case here with Apple, and you can currently see these two contracts in which I have agreed to sell 100 shares, this contract, if Apple goes up above 180 strike price. The second contract, which expires June of 2024, again, I have agreed to let go 100 shares of Apple at a strike price of 170. So you might look at this and say, well, Wayne, if the current share price of Apple is 181, you stand a real risk of losing 200 shares of Apple. And you're absolutely correct. Now, there are some things that I'm doing to manage these two contracts. One of the biggest things is just looking at the break-even price on a contract. So, for example, this is that contract that expires in June, and you can see here the strike price is 180. Even though Apple has gone above 180, I don't think the buyer of this contract is going to immediately exercise on me. You got to remember, they paid money essentially to enter this contract, and so there is a break-even price that you see listed here of 198. Now, if Apple continues to go up and we're getting close to 197, 198, then I might make a decision to see if I can roll up and roll out this contract. But the reality of it is, this is the problem that I have today with selling covered calls. Oftentimes, people who own 100 shares of a stock and they jump into the options journey, they are so excited about that premium, but they're not looking at the bigger picture. To me, Apple is a stock that I love, and I know we're not supposed to love our stocks, but let's face it, I do, and I never want to part ways with any of my Apple shares. So this is going to be a reality I am going to be facing moving forward. Do I have a significant risk of losing those 200 shares of Apple? And at the end of the day, have I earned some pretty good premium when it comes to Apple? Well, let's go ahead and take a look here at my spreadsheet. By the way, I've recently revised this spreadsheet. So we're going to go ahead and take a look here at 2023. Now let me go ahead and clear this current filter, and I'm just going to go ahead and choose Apple from the drop-down list. And you can see in 2023, these are all of the covered calls that I sold against Apple. And ultimately, guys, for those 200 shares and the 19 contracts that I sold, I did pretty good. I made $1,000 in premium. But here is the risk. If you love the shares that you own, is $1,000 worth it, considering that my total market gain on Apple, and we'll go back over here to Apple, you can see I'm currently sitting on 33%. So you compare that $1,000 to the $9,000 in total unrealized gains. If Apple were to be called away, yeah, it's cool to say you made $1,000 in premium, but as a friend of mine has said in the past, not all money is good money. Let's go ahead and take a look here at the focus that I have going into 2024, and that is going to be cash secured puts. To me, I'd rather own the 100 shares, hold on to them, and then maybe only sell occasional covered calls if it's a position that I do not care about having called away. Let's go ahead and look at covered calls here. And these are actively all of the covered calls that I've sold since January of 2024. Selling contracts against PayPal, Starbucks, Wells Fargo, Target, Bank of America. We've got SCHD from my Roth account. What else do we have? Microsoft is in there. This was the one that really cost me a lot of money. I had to roll up and roll out that position for fear of being assigned. Microsoft's another position very similar to Apple. Holy smokes, do I have a great cost basis, but I run the risk of ruining that potential, significant gain if those shares are called away at the strike price that's much lower than the current share price. I'm doing pretty good when it comes to selling covered calls, but cash secured puts is going to be the focus this year. Let's go ahead and talk about my strategy when it comes to selling cash secured puts. I'm going to go ahead and focus the outcome on just close early, and I want to show you guys some statistics as to why I think I've been pretty successful at generating meaningful premium when it comes to cash secured puts. Now, right now, if I focus on the disposition of closed early, these are contracts that I opened and I subsequently closed early. Very rarely do I let any of my contracts actually expire. And you can see here with these 66 contracts that I've opened and closed, this is the total average of days that contract remains open, 4.5 days. That means when I open a contract on Monday, right around Thursday or Friday, I am buying to close early. So let's go ahead and also break down my total percentage of return. Out of all of these contracts that I have closed out early, I have been able to lock in 68%. Now, some people, when they begin selling options, boy, they want to lock in 95%, 90%, 85%. I gotta tell you, I'm very content with locking in anywhere from 45 to 70%. So this 70% number is, I'm very happy with it. I don't look at this number and be like, dang, I could have made $8,318 if I had just waited a little bit more in the contract. No, I am very excited to lock in this $5,612. By buying to close early, it just means I'm able to take that cash and then go ahead and enter another contract. So there you have some pretty cool statistics. Going forward on my updates, I'm doing, I think, a better job with keeping track of some important information. Different than 2023 and 2022, I'm keeping track of how long that contract remains open. I'm keeping track of the total percentage on that contract that I'm locking in. And as you guys can see here, on all of the contracts that I closed out early on the cash secured put side, I'm locking in about 68%. Let's go ahead and do the same focus on the covered calls. I'm going to go ahead and just look at contracts that I have closed out early. And you can see here, for those 20 contracts since January of 2024, I'm actually holding these covered calls a little bit longer than what you saw on the cash secured put side. Cash secured put side, on average, 4.5 days. A little bit longer on the covered call side, and I'm okay with that. I'm holding just over 6 days. However, take a look here at the percentage of return on the covered call side, much more than what you saw on the cash secured put side. I'm locking in about 80% of profit. And I think just kind of goes back to, yes, I'm selling covered calls on positions, and yes, I'm only selling going forward above cost basis, but I'm willing to hold on to the covered call contracts a little bit longer. I also want to point out that, even though I'm selling covered calls against Bank of America, Starbucks, PayPal, I will probably hold off on selling covered calls against positions that I want to hold in the long term. Starbucks is kind of on the bubble. Bank of America, I'm completely content with those shares being called away. PayPal, I'm completely content. If you guys have been following my wheel video since last year, boy, PayPal has been so successful for me, and I have made an absolute killing on the 100 shares that I own, in addition to all of the cash secured puts. So let's go back here to the summary. Again, I'm really thrilled about this number. And if you guys are going to follow my journey going forward, as of today, right, February 15, 2024, I am at $100,804. Now that's net total premium since I began my journey in 2022. That equates to about $50,000 a year that I am making in premium. Now, here's the most exciting thing, right? Because some of you might be saying, wow, like $100,000, what are you doing with that money? And that, hands down, is the most exciting thing about my options journey. I am taking that $100,000 and I am essentially investing it in other either stocks, ETFs, or funding my Roth account. So I promise you guys, this is not a flex, but take a look here at the spreadsheet. February 1st, you can see here, this is the tally on all of my various brokerage accounts, retirement accounts that my wife and I have. And we are getting very close to crossing $1 million in total portfolio. I want to point out two accounts in particular, and that's going to be my Roth account, her Roth account. That's $41,000 that you see highlighted. That was the balance as of February 1st. And I want to point out that that $41,000 that we used to fund both her Roth account and my Roth account, that came exclusively from options premium that I've earned these past 2 years. I also want to point out that I opened up recently a custodial account for my son and my daughter. You can take a look here. That's nearly $5,000 that we have been able to put and fund their custodial accounts. That has come exclusively from selling options premium. And so to me, that's the most exciting thing about this figure. Yeah, you know, I'm making about $50,000 a year extra in options premium, but more important, I'm taking that money and I'm rolling it right into other worthwhile investments, right? Funding my kids' custodial account, right? Investing in my M1 portfolio, buying quality, right? Buy and long-term hold positions in ETFs. So there you have it, guys. Thanks for letting me share my journey. I hope you guys have given some consideration to selling options. It's certainly not for everybody. But I'll tell you right now, if you guys are looking to maybe do something a little bit different, add a little variety to, maybe you're already investing in your 401k, you have a taxable account, you're maxing out your Roth account, I say that you guys should absolutely do some research on selling options. For me, my journey that began a few years ago has paid off, as you guys can see, to the tune of nearly $100,000. And so very excited about that. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Be on the lookout for some more option videos coming your way in the near future. I'm going to start following some wheel strategy positions that I have been actively eyeballing, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.